to invite Wendy up here to do today's invocation and lead us off in the pledge. You're smart, you didn't go to the tripping side.
I'm trying. I think we all feel like we lose a few brain cells over the summer, but okay. Please join me with our invocation. Give our children a thirst for knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. May their hearts be ready to learn this year at home, school, and throughout their community. Open their ears. May they crave knowledge and seek it out. Thank you.
Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. I'm so grateful all of you have chosen to come out on this wonderful, beautiful, sunshiny day and join us for lunch and some fellowship. On your way out, feel free to stop by the Girl Scouts and grab a s'more. I think they're $5, good fundraiser, organization close to my heart. I would like to now invite Mary Bulk up to make a couple of quick announcements. Thank you, Mary. Thought I'd wait for you to put some food in your mouth.
Food in my mouth,
yeah.
You didn't.
Okay,
So thank you everyone who brought your pop tabs back for donations for the Riley Comfort Cart. We'll be delivering those this weekend at the Indiana District Convention. And I will also be presenting the $5,000 from the foundation during the Riley Parade of Checks. And did you know that over 600 infants die before their first birthday in Indiana? The Kiwanis, Indiana District has been raising money for this for the past 4 years for the Maternal Fetal Medicine Specialist Endowment to ensure that every mother and baby in Indiana has access to the best possible prenatal and postnatal care to lower Indiana's infant mortality rate, because we are one of the worst states in the country on infant mortality. Let's see. So many of you came last week when we did our brain think on how we want the club to evolve into the future, and I want to thank all of you who did that. If you've got weren't able to attend and you have any ideas, just either send them to Kelly and she'll get them to me, or send them to me directly. We want to continue to make this a viable club and to grow our membership and make it worthwhile for everybody, for their time, their talent, and their treasure. So if you've got ideas, please drop us a line. Our next foundation board meeting is Wednesday the 16th, and they will be approving the investment policy statement and funding for the projects that are projected for 2024. And as you know, our fiscal year starts 1 October, so if you've got anything that needs to be put in, please do it now, because time is running out. The past presidents will be convening this Friday to make their selections for the annual Career and Civic Awards, which have been presented since 1961. On August 17th, Matt Shirk from the Community Outreach Coordinator with the Indiana Donor Network will join us by Zoom. There's been a lot of issues with donations of late throughout the nation with our computer system and bias in that system on who gets selected, so that might be something interesting for everyone to hear. On the 24th, we have Dr. Edward Curtis and the very Reverend Anthony Yazzie will talk about the Arab Indianapolis, Indiana's first Arab-speaking neighborhood in the early 1900s here, which is where Lucas Oil Stadium is now. There was a WFYI documentary and the St. George Middle Eastern Festival in September that's going to be on Zoom. Explorador will talk about the grant that enabled them to secure student interns for their program. And then on the 21st, the third Monday, again, Roger is coordinating the IOZO's Lunch Bunch. on August 21st and again on September 18th. Mandy Bender and Kara Covert-Prey from the Indianapolis Motor Speedway Museum, will join us on September 7th here at the Columbia Club. And the College Mentors for Kids will also be providing a recap of the grant that we provided for them for their Little Buddies program. On the 5th of October, so that'd be the new year, it's the induction of the new slate that you selected. So I'll come in as president. Eric Rowland will come in as president-elect, and directors Steve Farrow and Art Kodroff will be installed. We also have Riley will join us to share more about the upcoming Kiwanis Giving Opportunity for the Mental Health Initiative program. Applications for the 2024 funding through the Kiwanis Foundation is open until October 6th. Several grants of up to $5,000 will be provided for the creation or expansion of initiatives that directly impact youth in Marion County. If you'd like to assist with reviewing the applications in late October, reach out to the Kiwanis office. So instead of the meeting on October 12th, there will be a Codes for Kids service opportunity. As you know, this is with the Salvation Army, and since I'm the current president of the Salvation Army Board, everyone, I know who all you are. We're going to have an opportunity to pair up with Kiwanis, Cleat Clubbers, Circle K'ers, Action Clubbers to volunteer at the fairgrounds for this opportunity for the Salvation Army Project. Last year we did 4,000 codes for kids. So it is a huge project. We need a lot of volunteers to put this all together. So October 12th, put it in your calendar, the fairgrounds. Okay, so Graham's not here today, but thanks to Graham for lining up a Zoom meeting for January 11th. This should be very interesting for the 2024 NIT basketball tournament at Hinkle Fieldhouse as we kick off the new year. Let's see. And Wendy, it's back to you.
Pop up just a second here. Okay. So I also want to thank Graham, who's not here, for giving us space again at the Lacey School of Business for interview day for the Abe Lincoln program. So that Saturday, January 13th, we'll be meeting with all of these wonderful, bright, inspiring people. Makes you feel good about the future that we're going to be heading into. And then, of course, on February 9th, Friday the 9th, we have our Abe Lincoln Scholarship Program. And between now and then, you're going to be hearing a lot more about opportunities to get involved and keep that program going. 2025 is our 50th year for the Abe Lincoln Scholarship Program, so we're looking forward to doing more. And I also want to take a quick moment to share with you a letter that we received from Paige Moore. Paige was the recipient of the 2020 scholarship, and she is at her final year at IU in Bloomington. She is studying neuroscience with a minor in psychology. She's excited to graduate and find work relating to working in a lab and researching. She's fascinated with how diet and lifestyle impacts neurological disorders and mental health disorders. Let's see, she says, eventually I will continue my education by going back to grad school and pursuing a master's. And of course, none of this would be possible without the generous scholarship you've given me. This scholarship has allowed me to pursue my academic goals to the fullest, and I would not be where I am without it. So thank you everyone for awarding me with this scholarship. I look forward to completing my final year here at IU and finding a job tailored to my interest. I will forever be grateful for this scholarship for helping me through college, and I will keep you updated on whatever job I find. So I think that is also kind of a job search plea for those of you who are connected. So thank you.
Thank you. So I feel like today is the Mary and Wendy show. So I'd like to invite Mary back up to introduce a grant recipient that we're so thrilled to be able to support this. Do you want me to do it? Okay. So I would like to invite Tammie Carter, the CEO of LifeSmart Youth, to provide an update on the $2,500 grant that the Kiwanis Foundation awarded last year, specifically for the TEACH Tween Education and Access to Community Health Initiative. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you. Okay, Shorty.
Sorry.
Good afternoon. It is a pleasure to be here to thank you all in person for the support of LifeSmart Youth. LifeSmart Youth is an agency that's been around. Actually, this next month, we're going to celebrate our 80th anniversary.
Wow.
And yeah, it's a big deal to be around for 80 years. And for all of those 80 years, although I always love to tell this funny story, our first name was the Anti-Syphilis League of Indiana. If there was ever an agency that needed a name change, it was Social Health Association. So, but for 80 years, we have been providing medically accurate, school-based, age-appropriate health education related to reproduction, human growth and development, and healthy relationships for young people. And your support of us has provided support for a new initiative that we have called Teach, which Trina shared with you, and it's really focused on removing barriers for youth of color. Mary talked about it a little bit earlier. Indiana ranks last or first, if you will, in all the bad things, and that is especially so for young people of color who typically avoid hospitals, avoid doctor's offices due to lack of insurance or just lack of education. And this support really allows us to serve more youth. In the 2022-23 school year, we actually served just shy of 14,000 kids. Prior to the pandemic, we were upwards of 20,000 kids, and so we've been, like most everybody else, fighting our way back. But 14,000 was a record high since the pandemic, and 48% of those were youth of color. We serve 8 counties across the state of Indiana, with a majority of our work being right here in Marion County. And we do not charge anything to IPS schools. We ask all other school districts who are a little bit more affluent to kick in a little bit of skin in the game, and we never charge anybody more than 7 to 10% of the cost of our services. But when we're able to get support from other organizations, we're able to continue to offer those services to schools like IPS or those who can't afford anything, our services. So we provided human growth and development, what we call 3R. Human growth and development is just learning about your body to elementary school students, but to middle school students we offered 3 R's, which is our reproductive health, education, and also healthy relationships. When young women of color, and unfortunately young men, don't have education around their reproduction and their sexuality, oftentimes that leads to very bad outcomes with regard to violence. And Indiana is 3rd in the country in terms of youth violence. And so we want to continue to do our work to alleviate those problems. The Teach Alliance has really assembled a group of professionals across the community to work on everything from policy to, we have policymakers, we have health practitioners, we have other not-for-profits who are all looking at this across the continuum. How do we remove the language barriers, the transportation barriers, and our role is how do we remove the barriers in the classroom and bring more education to young people. And so we thank you for your support. We'll continue the good work, and we look forward to providing a whole lot of detail in our written report when we send that in later. And then so I'll just leave one more plug about the 80th. When I send Trina and Kelly some information, I'll send you information about our 80th anniversary celebration. We're going to do that at the Tibbs Drive-In on September the 21st. So the 21st day of September, all of that. And it's an 80s themed party. And so there was really nothing exciting happening in 1943 except for probably a bomb dropping on somebody. So we decided to go with the 80s theme. And so we're going to dress up in 80s clothing, watch an 80s movie, have a lot of fun, meet some new friends, and hopefully raise some money. So we would love to have you.
Thank you so much. Here is a certificate of appreciation for taking your time to visit with us today.
Thank you. You gave me lunch. You didn't need to give me anything.
Oh, we owe you lots and lots more for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Finally, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our featured speakers for today. We're fortunate that the newsroom development director, Holly Hayes, who's joined us before, along with Bro Crift, were able to talk about the changing newsroom model and really connected us to today's program opportunity. Holly stewards philanthropic partnerships to extend and support Indy Star journalism, coordinates community engagement efforts, and oversees their holiday charitable giving program. In having coffee with her recently, she shared the tremendous work that Caroline Beck is doing. Caroline is Indy Star's K-12 education reporter who is able to dive into the issues facing families, children, and educators in Marion County's township school districts because of the Report for America program. It's a national service program that connects early career journalists with newsrooms across the country to fill undercovered beats. She previously worked as a political and state government reporter for the Alabama Daily News. Caroline was born and raised here in Indianapolis, and we're thrilled to have her back here. She's a graduate of Hanover College. Please, without further ado, help me welcome Caroline back.
Yes, all people gotta stick together. Thank you for that great introduction. I was like gonna give this whole spiel that basically said all of that, but she really did it for me. So, but yes, no, thank you for having me. If you see me looking down, I'm just referring to some notes I have on my phone. So, but yeah, well, since she did go through all of that, but let me just dive in a little bit more detail to just tell you who I am and a little bit about Report for America as well. Like she said, I was born and raised here in Indianapolis. I first started out going to Speedway schools. That was me 1st through 3rd grade, and then we moved to the north side, and then I went to Washington Township School, so I'm a North Central graduate. So we can talk about that later. And then after that, I went on to Hanover College and got an English major degree, and I kind of discovered later on, maybe than most, that I wanted to pursue journalism, and I was very passionate about trying to inform people, always very curious, so journalism and writing just combined very well with that. And then one thing led to another, and I found myself in Alabama, in Montgomery, in the capital, and I was covering state politics there for about 3.5 years, and during that I was doing that during the pandemic, with that most heavy part of the pandemic. And through that, I just discovered that politics really wasn't my forte, wasn't where my passion lied, and I discovered education was really what I wanted to pursue, and covering education and all of the very vast topics that it entails is very interesting to me. And then I found the Report for America program, and I thought it was perfect because they had a position for the Indy Star covering K-12 education, and so it was like a very perfect sign for me to try to pursue that. And so unfortunately, it all ended up well, and now I've been here for about a little over a year now, covering K-12 in Marion County specifically is what I mostly focus on. Sometimes it kind of branches out and I cover statewide or something that impacts the state. But yeah, my focus has primarily been on covering the 11 school districts here in Marion County. Also, with coming on to the Indy Star, we wanted to make it not so much, I think historically, the coverage of the Indy Star has been really focused on IPS and their school district, which is important. They're the largest in the county and largest in the state, so they deserve to be covered, but we were really missing the coverage of all the other townships in Marion County, which those all combined very much outweigh IPS and how many kids those are. So we wanted to try to refocus and see if we could get into those townships more and see if we could just pay more attention to them and give them more adequate coverage. So I would say for the past year, that's kind of been my focus, has been trying to get into there more and cover their issues. But IPS also just went through a very massive overhaul of their whole district. They are doing this plan called Rebuilding Stronger Plan, which is a really reimagining how they use their resources. So that took up a significant chunk of my previous year, but now starting a new school year, I'd really love to dive back into those other townships and getting to know them better. Some other things that I've also touched on with my coverage here at this time, you know, looking after the legislative session and all of the laws that were passed that are influencing K through 12 education with that, we and my other colleague Rachel Fredette, who covers the suburb counties, we wanted to see or focus on those bills that were affecting LGBTQ students and how those laws are impacting them currently, and what is the reaction and fallout from those essentially. So that led us to doing a very extensive story about transgender kids and the gender affirming care that they get currently, and the law that was enacted that is going to be basically taking that away by the end of this year. That was like a very extensive process that we went through. It was just in general hard to find those people that would be willing to talk to us about a very vulnerable topic and something that's, you know, very personal, very sensitive, and something that's clearly in the media and in the political landscape. So just getting people to like sit down and talk with us was hard to begin with, but then even trying to get people to be on the record with us, which is what we always strive to do, is have our sources, you know, be open and say, this is who we're talking to. But we knew with that specific situation, since we were talking with minors and then kids that were also in a very vulnerable state, we also knew that providing anonymity to them would also be very important to tell this story for them. So that story published, oh gosh, I can't remember now, a month or two ago. And we were very happy that we could get those people and talk to those families and show their lived experience. Because I know that the debate around the bill was a lot of centered on, you know, should gender affirming care be allowed in the state? Should minors have access to that? And we didn't want that to be what the story really centered on, because we knew that care was already happening to these kids. And so we just wanted to show this is what their lived experience is, and this is how this law is affecting them. And you know, what we found through that was that a lot of families are now having to consider just leaving the state because they're very unsure of what their future will be. They're unsure of, you know, if they're able to access the same healthcare that they were previously. So that was what we wanted to focus on, and I think we were really proud with our final product with that. And then just recently, like after going after that story, we've kind of tried to be following up on all the other bills and legislation that's come out as well. One of them was the HB 1608 bill, which started out as the Indiana's version of the Don't Say Gay bill, and that really got way watered down and essentially is just affecting human sexuality education and how kids identify in schools, their names and pronouns. And so we just published another story like right before I arrived here, just getting reaction from parents in the community about how they feel about that law, because in turn, you know, they were trying to affect a very certain population with that bill, and what came up from that is that it's really affecting all students now. So any kid that wants to go by a shortened name, abbreviated name, it's going to affect them, and they're gonna get this notification sent home. So we thought that was interesting to look at and see what people and parents are thinking about that kind of law and how it's affecting schools as well, because it's a whole new reporting process that they never had to do at the start of the school year. So yeah, that's kind of something, the most recent things that we've really been working on. Some other topics that I also thought I would mention. Oh yeah, well, let me just share a little bit too about the Report for America program, which first of all, I think is just a fantastic program, because it's the whole mission and goal behind it is to uplift local journalism, which I'm sure you all are aware of is slowly dying in this country, or it is just not as it was. And I think that is a real shame and a real disservice to these communities that deserve to be well covered. And if they aren't well covered, then, you know, decisions get made that maybe aren't in the best interest of their communities. And so I'm really proud to be part of Report for America. Another fun part of being in that program is they also want us to do service projects that involve youth and journalism. And so what that's looked like for me is I've gone into 2 different high schools in the central Indiana area, and I've kind of mentored their high school newspapers. One of them was in Lawrence Central High School, and then the other one was at Center Grove High School. In Lawrence Central High School, there was a very small group of kids, and I was really just trying to get them like comfortable with the idea of like interviewing people. This is kind of how you approach asking questions, and just kind of like the basics of journalism, which was really fun. And they were a great group of kids. And then the Center Grove group of kids that I worked with, they wanted to pursue this really great bigger story for their semester that was tackling fentanyl overdoses in Johnson County, where they're located. And it was actually, I learned this by working with them, but that the fentanyl problem in Johnson County is, I believe, worse than it is here in Marion County. It's, I think, one of the worst counties in the state for fentanyl overdoses. So I thought that was incredibly cool of them to want to take on such a big, challenging topic, something that I don't think a lot of high schoolers, tend to talk about often. But they saw the issue, and they wanted to talk to experts and interview like what it was like on the ground to try to handle this really big issue. And so I helped them, mentored through that. And I think, and by the end of the school year last year, they came forward with this really in-depth story, with also coupled with a video that they created. So I'm really proud of them and the work that they could do through that. So it was really, really fun to watch them grow and prosper that way. And so now I'm trying to get into another high school as the new school year started, and get to work with another one, hopefully somewhere in Marion County. I've been talking to like Warren Township folks to see if they would be interested. So yeah, that's, I think, a really great part of the Report for America program that I'm super thrilled that they really advocate for and just want to support student journalism. I think that's really important for especially the future of journalism to continue on. Some other, big topics that I think I'm covering with my beat, or that I'm continuing to look into, is well, of course, IPS and that Rebuilding Stronger plan. It's a lot of moving parts, and it's something that's going to be affecting the district for the next like 5 or so years. A lot of it is, consolidating schools, and then new schools are opening up, like the Thomas Carr Howe High School is opening up again, which I know a lot of people are very excited about. So I plan to really try to follow that in-depthly and to make sure that this plan is actually doing what they say they want it to do, which is to provide more equity across the district, make sure all kids across the district have access to the programs that are high performing and that they say that a lot of parents want. So that is something I want to keep following. Other big topics are, well, again, with the state legislature and their approval of a higher rate or a higher cutoff for the private school vouchers, that is basically opened it up for anyone in the state to really access those private school vouchers. And here in Indianapolis, there is such a wide span of school choice options. We've got public schools, charter schools, private schools. I don't think a lot of people know that the Catholic schools here in Indianapolis are like the second largest single district here, the Archdiocese of Indianapolis. So they have immense, power, immense influence on the educational landscape here. And I think that is, worth examining and worth looking at and seeing, why are families choosing to use these vouchers, and why are certain families not choosing to use them? If you look at some of the like lowest performing schools in Indianapolis, those families still choose to stick there. And I want to know why that is. Why aren't they accessing these vouchers that are available to them? So I think all of those questions and topics are really fascinating. Some other topics I'm looking into are, I know it's not really election season right now, but I feel like it's always election season, or just like it's always around us. But the school board elections that happened last year, a lot of them were very politicized in a lot of different ways. In Marion County, the school boards here weren't so much politicized as you might have seen up in the suburb counties, But I think it's such a fascinating topic because in Indiana, the school board races are meant to be nonpartisan, but that's clearly not the way that they've gone. And I know there's been legislation in the past where lawmakers are specifically trying to make them a partisan political election. So I think seeing the development of that and how that's really a trend seen nationwide, how that kind of goes and develops here for Indiana, specifically Marion County, but the donut counties are close by, and so I think that is important to see how they affect here, us in Indianapolis as well. Other than that, I mean, you know, there's endless amount of topics for covering for education that I always am learning new things about. The pandemic and the way that it affected children and students here in Indianapolis is something that is always, I feel like, going to be a topic that we're going to keep talking about for years to come, and seeing just truly what was the impact on them, because I know we've seen from the test scores and seen, you know, what the impact is like for that, but you know, there's so much discussion about mental health and how that is impacting kids and how, you know, teachers have been affected by all of this as well. All of the shortages we're seeing in staffing, that's also a really big topic that I think will remain around for a while too. But yeah, so there's so many topics to talk about when we're talking about the pandemic and how it impacted school children. I think it also created a lot of innovation for school districts though, and I think there's a lot of really interesting, innovative things coming from schools right now that I think also deserve to be looked at and examined. So I would love to dive into those topics as well. But yeah, that's kind of the quick and dirty version of everything I'm looking at. But I also just would love to have a conversation with you all and understand, you know, what are the topics about education that you see as something that you would like to see covered more, or something that you think hasn't even been touched on and want to talk about that more. But I don't know if we want to open up for like a Q&A, but yeah, that's, or you can even ask me any questions that you might have about the education world. But yeah, I'd be curious just to hear what you think should be covered or what topics are interesting to you. Yeah. Anyone has ideas?
Not a quiet much, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Yes.
Who funds Report for America? Where is the funding?
Yeah. Well, so yeah, I think Holly would probably be the best one because it changes a little bit.
Oh gosh, I'm so short, you guys. I'm so sorry. Can you guys hear me okay with this? Okay. So Report for America is a national service organization. They get their parent company they're part of a 501c3 called the Ground Truth Project that does Report for America and Report for the World. So they have an international and a national service program. Their funding comes from Ground Truth, which sources their funding from a number of foundations or private individual funders, donors. And then that money supports part of Caroline's salary. So I can give you guys just a brief overview of the ways in which Report for America funding has benefited our newsroom. We've had 2 RFA core members, and the arrangement with Report for America is that they provide up to 50% of the reporter's salary for their first year, 33% for their second, and then there's an optional third year that we can extend their contract, where they provide up to, I think, 20% of their salary. And then it challenges us to fundraise the remainder of it, which is kind of how I got into this position in the first place, of trying to figure out how we can continue to fund our journalism through outside sources. So we've been very fortunate not only to receive that funding from Report for America, but the Glick Philanthropies has also provided us $25,000 to support Caroline's reporting, and we've also had some very generous recurring monthly gifts from readers who just are interested in supporting that program. So we draw that.
So does the parent organization get government funding?
I don't know the breakdown of their, it's a nonpartisan organization, I know that much, but I do not know the breakdown of their funding source. I can get you more on that if you want it.
I was curious.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where did the Report for America stories go?
The Report for America stories are available on our website, indystar.com, and they're in print and online. And then Caroline's work, because of, well, thanks to the Glick Philanthropies gift, is now without a paywall, so anyone can access it for free. Yeah. Yeah.
Two unrelated questions. My first one is your emphasis on how the environment is affecting jobs with the coal industry going down, and how high-tech jobs could be brought to Indiana rather than going to the states around us, and how people are leaving because it isn't really something that we are united on trying to find jobs for the green technology that we don't have the production of, like Kentucky's producing the green cars. We're not doing that. So, putting emphasis and hoping to get some people with vision to look at what you're doing, like maybe what Carmen's doing with a lot of things that are innovative there. That's a really good example of how Indianapolis and the rest of the state can do better with some of the innovations in Carmen. Secondly, I thought it was really interesting the dichotomy between your reporting on LGBT and we're giving an award to this young lady over here for just doing exactly what the legislature did not do to educate about sexual education. I thought that was very interesting. The more you can bring that out, the better. We're going to continue to help the non-legislature kind of people, but see the issue. And you do see the issue. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. Since you've been back in Indiana and covering this area, what has been the thing that surprised you the most? You say, wow, I didn't realize, I didn't have appreciation for this. And the other question I had is,
Can I hear?
I'm sorry. What is the one thing or two things that you were most surprised about that you didn't have an appreciation for since coming back here and covering Marion County schools? And the other thing is, if you had to pick one or two things that you think, wow, if we could just change this, that would make a huge advance in where we need to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, in case you guys couldn't hear, he was asking what was the one thing that surprised me the most by coming back here and covering schools, and then if there was one or two things that would need to be changed that could really make a big difference in schools and education. I think maybe one of the biggest things that surprised me was probably the school choice landscape that is here. Going to school here, growing up here, I had no idea about the expansiveness of like charter schools that were in the city. They did, I guess I should say that the charter schools really started coming into Indianapolis around 2014 time, I believe. The law has been there since like 2001, but I think it took a while for them to really start going. So granted, I was like on my way out before they really started coming, but I think just seeing that and seeing the really rapid growth of the school choice here was very surprising to me. I had no idea the kind of like influence and influence they had on the whole education landscape, especially when you're looking at just IPS. They're a very fascinating district. They have their district-run schools, their IPS neighborhood schools that have always been there, and now they have these innovation schools which may or may not have a charter attached to them, so they are still IPS schools, but they are also charter schools. So it's this whole very complex world that is very hard to like explain to people in 2 to 3 sentences. But all of that, learning about that is very interesting to me, especially because I think IPS is like one of the few, if only, school districts in the country that has this kind of program, this innovation schools, working with the district schools. So all of that just was very interesting to me. And I think just coupling that with the way this country is looking at school choice nowadays is very fascinating to me, and it's very much leaning towards that way of the system of giving just all of the choice to families to decide what kind of education they want, instead of the historical way of all of our public school districts, and you are assigned to a school district and this is what you do. And I mean, even within the school districts now, they're trying to adapt to that system as well. Perry Township had a whole school choice program for their elementary schools, so all their families could essentially change or choose where they wanted to go. That recently changed because they are dealing with some bus transportation issues. So they were like, actually, we need to have you guys assigned to an area to help us with getting you there in the first place. So anyways, but schools are still really trying to adapt to that. And I think that was something that really surprised me. And also too, I think just living here and knowing the way my already held perceptions of IPS when I was a Washington Township kid were, I mean, I just really, didn't spend a lot of time thinking about them because, I was a teenager and stuff. But then learning about them and learning about all of the very innovative ways that they're trying to do their school district, it honestly surprises me that they are losing as many kids as they are. Their enrollment has kind of steadily been dropping over the years, and people can attribute that to what they want, to the charter schools, to the private school vouchers, but I'm really impressed with what they've been able to do. And then to answer your other question, that I mean, it's very hard to say. I would say, I mean, the way that our state legislature has chosen to fund schools, I think, is also a really critical thing that needs to be examined. What the state has chosen to do is slowly take away the complexity index funding, which for you all that don't have to be bogged down by school budget talk, that essentially is determining school districts' complexity of the different kinds of kids they have in their districts. So like low-income kids, kids with disabilities, kids that just have so much more challenges to them to help educate them. That the way that the state has chosen to view funding has slowly taken that away, or not have that so much weighing the balance of how much they get, and instead they are putting that towards other things. Like they have increased special education funding, but they've also given more to the private school vouchers and other ways that money is being split up now. So I think that is an interesting way, and I don't want to say that just giving more money to these districts is what's going to solve the problem, because that is not the case. IPS is getting the most funding out of any school district in Marion County, and they still have a lot of challenges to overcome. So thinking of that, when you think about that, it's really, everything really ties into what can make or break a child's success in education when you're looking at their housing stability, their income stability for their family, job market stability, food
Internet
and
access was a really big part of it during the pandemic.
Yes, access, internet, broadband access, all of that. So there's just so many factors that go into what can really help a district improve. And another thing about, the way Indiana chooses to fund schooling is they have capped property taxes and how districts can draw on those property taxes. So that has really influenced so many decisions that districts have made, since that law was changed in the early 2000s. I can't remember when. But yeah, that also had a really big influence on funding in general. So yeah, it's so hard to say. I know I'm just not giving you a straight answer, but yeah, it's obviously so complex, but so many things. Yeah. Yeah.
You've obviously seen much more of the educational environment than any of us could possibly.
Yeah.
Have there been any programs that you've witnessed that you can actually say these kids are going to excel academically?
Yeah.
They're going to know how to read, they're going to know how to write,
Yeah.
they're going to know how to, civics and those kinds of things. Is there a program in this state or in this county where you've seen real progress or achievement?
Yeah. I don't know if I can pinpoint a specific program exactly, or academic program. You know, I did a very extensive story earlier this year, that published earlier this year, that actually was months long of reporting that looked at charter schools in the district, how many had closed down, why that was, and I ended up learning that there were, out of the 100 or so charters that have opened in this county, in Indianapolis specifically, about half of them have closed down. So I wanted to know why that was, what's the trend there. And there were, through all of that, there are a lot of really shining parts and shining moments in that charter school story, like Paramount Schools here in Indianapolis. They have 3 elementary schools. They really do, they have some of the best academic testing scores out of the whole county, and even out of the whole state almost. So they really have a shining program. And to get down to the nitty-gritty of like what makes them so great, I think is hard to pinpoint exactly. They have a lot of really innovative things going on. Like they have little farms on their in their campus, on their school campus. So they just have so many like hands-on innovative ways that they try to engage kids in learning. I think that is their biggest calling card, is they really want to engage kids. And they know, I mean, we're just having even a hard time getting kids to come back to school after the pandemic. So their ability to engage kids and make learning fun and also teaching them the basics is, I think, really shown to be impactful for them. They also have like a free cafe in their building that gives coffee, free drinks to their teachers and staff. So they obviously have like a really inviting environment for their staff as well. So that is also a key thing too, of just like how do we retain teachers in this state when we have, you know, all this legislation coming at them, or different, you know, ways and environments that just make it very easy or very hard for them to do their job nowadays. So that is a program I think that's very unique in the city, that I've spent a good amount of time. I've talked to their leader a lot of the time, because that's another thing when you're getting to school funding. Charter schools aren't able to draw on the property taxes here like our public schools are, so they have a really big gap in funding compared to what public schools get. So a lot of them have really trying to be advocating at the State House to get that changed so they are able to draw on property taxes, but that's a ongoing battle, and who knows when that'll happen or if that'll change. But yeah, and I think another thing too that you made me think of when you asked that was about the science of reading. That is a really big topic right now, that I think a lot of people would be very surprised to know that we've just been teaching reading wrong for a lot of our years. For this country has been teaching reading a very not scientific way to kids. And now the state has, you know, written it into law that every school has to be teaching the science of reading, which is all of these research method ways of how our brains actually understand reading, understand literacy. So I think once we see that going more into play and seeing that really implement well into schools, I think hopefully that'll boost literacy rates across the state and get those iRead scores way further up there, because they've been continuing to drop since, you know, I looked at that recently. I think it was 2012. Just then we had like close to 90% of the state being proficient readers by the 3rd grade, and that's just slowly been declining ever since then. So it's very interesting. Yeah.
I'd like to see you do a story on the science of reading.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that.
People
Yes.
my age and
Yeah.
this population's age would be shocked, you know.
Yeah.
I've never even heard of
what
it,
has
so
been
you just mentioned it.
Yes.
No, but it's what we learn.
Uh-huh.
It's phonics and grammar, and they have not been teaching phonics and grammar
Yeah.
in grade school. I think it would be fascinating to, you know,
Yep.
do a story on that.
Yeah, I've been slowly trying to dabble into the science of reading. I just did a story about Marian University and their teachers college, and they were just given this
That was
grade
a
from
nice article.
it's from the national report that said they're the best in the state at teaching teachers how to do the science of reading. So that was all very interesting to learn how just to be in the classroom and see it implemented is something I really want to do more, and just like get into classrooms, see how they're doing the science of reading. I agree. I I think it's something that just a lot of people, you either know a lot about it because it's really fascinating, or you've never heard of it, yeah. So, yeah.
I would check out Shortridge High School. It's really got it.
Oh, really?
When you go down there, see how they're doing things and how they're
Okay.
we are affiliated with them with our Heat Club. But,
Oh, great.
Shortridge has really got it going, and that's a public school.
Yeah.
And it's been there a long time. Maybe there's some ideas there that you could talk about in your paper.
Yeah.
Other schools could look at it and say, well, why are they going to college? And why the rate in Indiana is only 9% people with a college degree.
Yeah.
Maybe we could increase that with some things going on there. As an example of a non-charter school.
Yeah, no, I've heard some really great things coming out of Shortridge. My grandfather went to Shortridge, so I'm very familiar with the area. Yeah. I know, got connections everywhere. Yeah, no.
I think we've got time for one more quick question. Wrap up.
There's a couple things you haven't brought up. One is the foundation. I live in Lawrence Township. They have a very strong foundation that supplements what the school's able to fund themselves. And I think that enhances the student's opportunity to excel.
Yeah.
So I suspect, without knowing, that there are not that many school districts in
Yeah.
the state that actually have the foundation
Yeah.
that's privately funded to help supplement and come up with these innovative programs.
Yeah, yeah.
The other aspect, that's a hard thing to answer, but parents. And having parents make good decisions for their children and properly motivating them
Yeah.
to want to do well in school. And, we're in, this choice thing is part of America. America is used to choices. And I grew up in a family of K through 12 teachers, and it's a lot different than it was 60 years ago than it is now.
Yeah.
The choice is a good thing, but you gotta have people making good choices.
Yeah.
But how do you deal with that? How do you help people make good choices? Okay?
Yeah, parental involvement is such an important factor in child's lives and how their education outcomes go. So it's such a great point. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Stay up there for just a second. You guys all have your homework. Read her article on science of reading.
Absolutely.
And then bring back your notes so that you can teach me. Thank you so much for being here with us today. We're proud to make a donation in your honor. Each quarter, we make a donation in the name of our speakers to a nonprofit. This quarter, it is Report for America. So we're happy that we got to hear such a robust look from you. So with that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting. Don't forget the next two are on Zoom. We'll see you virtually next Thursday at noon. Thank you.